A grey sedan slid through Windsor's Henry VIII gate just after noon, sunlight bouncing off the windscreen and revealing the unmistakable profile of Prince Andrew at the wheel. In that instant the castle's ancient stone absorbed a modern paradox. The disgraced Duke of York was back on royal ground for the Order of the Garter, an honor he still technically holds, yet crowds lining the Long Walk would not see him march in velvet robes today. Those crowds had gathered for tradition's greatest costume drama, white plumes nodding atop sapphire mantles, musicians in scarlet, and the slow, ceremonial climb from St. George's Chapel up to the King's apartments. It is spectacle engineered to reassure a kingdom that hierarchy remains intact. But hierarchy, like old masonry, develops hairline cracks. 4 years of scandal have left Andrew out of public duties. Even his appearance at Easter service drew murmurs of discomfort among senior courtiers. Today's compromise, private lunch, hidden investiture, no procession, would test whether those cracks can be wallpapered over with velvet. Behind closed doors, the Garter lunch began in the Waterloo chamber where King Charles, Queen Camilla, and Prince William greeted 24 knights and ladies companion. Silver chargers bore the Garter motto Honi soit qui mal y pense, the claret was Chateau Lafite. Andrew, seated far from any camera lens, slipped back into a world he once owned, shaking hands with former prime ministers and nodding to Spain's King Felipe, a supernumerary knight. Yet outside, every boom of the brass band felt like a reminder that one man was missing in action. Tour guides explained to tourists that the Duke had stepped away from public life after a friendship with Jeffrey Epstein metastasized into a civil lawsuit and an 8-figure settlement. Most nodded politely, some shook their heads. Scandal fatigue runs deep, but memory runs deeper. The public procession assembled without him. Charles led the file, Camilla lifted her train, William followed, and for a heartbeat the vacant slot behind the Prince of Wales seemed to pulse like negative space in a portrait. Photography students on the parapet angled lenses toward the gap. Newspapers tomorrow will likely print the absence as loudly as any plume. Inside the chapel cloisters, whispers circulated that Andrew had petitioned the king to restore his right to wear the mantle publicly, an appeal politely shelved until future review. In the language of palace diplomacy, future review translates to never, unless the wind changes direction dramatically. The monarch's private compromise is thought to allow Andrew the dignity of his knighthood at lunches and vigils while shielding the crown from visible blowback. Yet dignity is a fragile currency. Courtiers recall the final Garter day of Queen Elizabeth II in 2022, when mother and heir allegedly intervened hours before the march, insisting Andrew remain behind chapel doors. The decision signaled a line in Windsor sand, past a certain threshold of reputational risk, even blood finds its privileges revoked. Today the royal photographer captured a near-identical tableau, cloister arches, golden sunbeams, but no Duke of York. Instead, the lens found Princess Anne's resolute stride and Prince Edward's modest grin, a kind of institutional muscle memory filling the void. At the top of the hill, carriages clattered, the public cheered, news outlets clipped footage. Many watchers likely never registered who was absent. Still, absence shapes narrative. A senior aide confessed over coffee that the family's summer calendar now resembles a risk matrix rather than a celebratory diary, trooping the color, royal ascot, then July's state visit from President Macron. Every guest list is weighed for optics, every balcony lineup modeled like a military exercise. In that algorithm, Andrew occupies an almost Scrödinger state, present and not present, member and non-member, brother and exile. And yet, he remains a Knight of the Garter. The order is the Crown's oldest chivalric body, founded by Edward III nearly 7 centuries ago, with membership limited to 24 pillars of public life plus stranger monarchs. gbnews.com. A knighthood cannot be revoked by scandal alone, removal demands a sovereign's personal act, an unthinkably public severance no Windsor has yet dared. Thus Andrew inhabits a peculiar purgatory, barred from pageantry, welcome to haute cuisine. That purgatory became visible when a staff car whisked him from side gate to side wing after lunch, sparing him the long walk back to family quarters. One footman joked, sotto voce, he's the ghost of Garter House. Groundskeepers later confirmed the Duke left by a discreet exit before carriages returned, avoiding both press packs and smartphone crowds. Meanwhile, in press lounges, royal commentators produced instant analogies. Andrew is to Charles what the abdication was to George VI, a perpetual cautionary tale. Others argued that cautionary tales strengthen monarchy by demonstrating self-policing. Headlines tonight will decide which version sticks. One thing felt certain: Prince William's quiet authority over the day. Sources suggest the heir was instrumental in reaffirming the Duke's private-only status, stressing that public tolerance narrows when accountability appears selective. William's stance, the duty-first ethos inherited from his grandmother, carries weight with his father, who sees in his son the institution's long-term insurance policy. That policy came with visible dividends. As the carriage procession climbed Castle Hill, Catherine waved. Charlotte matched her mother's royal wrist tilt. George executed a near-perfect bow. Louis counted wheels aloud under his breath. The camera's gaze stayed pinned on a narrative of continuity, children behaving, king smiling, sun shining, while the Duke's moral bankruptcy remained locked inside 14th-century walls. A mini note before we roll on: if parsing these hidden maneuvers keeps you reading, you can tap follow and catch every whispered reshuffle before it makes official gazettes. The order's chivalric service ended with an organ voluntary echoing through medieval stone. Tourists dispersed toward ice cream vans, convinced they'd witnessed monarchy in full sail. Most never knew of the side conversation that may shape future chapters. Senior courtiers reportedly debating whether Andrew's residence, Royal Lodge, should be reallocated once its current lease agreement undergoes review. The calculus is pragmatic: maintenance costs, security logistics, but the symbolism is potent. Move the Duke, and you signal a final transition from scandal containment to institutional subtraction. Late afternoon clouds gathered. Castle staff zipped protective sleeves over plumed hats. In a rear courtyard, Andrew's car idled briefly while a footman loaded a single overnight bag. The Duke tapped the steering wheel, face unreadable, before driving back through town past Windsor's tourist stalls. One onlooker, catching the fleeting glimpse, told a reporter, "He looked lonely, but maybe that's the tax you pay." Loneliness, after all, is not exile. Exile would have stripped the Garter badge from his lapel. The Crown has chosen a middle way, 1 foot in, 1 foot out, hoping time will erode public fury faster than membership statutes erode loyalty. Whether that gamble pays off may become clear at next year's procession. For now, Andrew slips into the twilight quarter of royal life, perpetual guest at his own house. The sun set behind the round tower, castle floodlights flicked on. Somewhere beyond public reach, King Charles raised a final toast to service and renewal, words that are easy to speak within guarded walls, harder to live beneath headlines. Garter Day 2025 closed without incident. The monarchy's summer calendar rolled forward, and a single empty velvet robe returned to storage. Silent testament to scandals the public remembers even when tradition tries to march on. What happens next? Ascot will test whether Andrew appears in a private box. August whispers of an anniversary garden party may reveal just how broad the family's definition of working royal has become. Autumn budget reviews could reopen the Royal Lodge dossier. And if public patience thins further, the king may one day confront the question Elizabeth managed to avoid. Can a knighthood be stripped from a brother without fracturing the myth of Windsor permanence? Until then, the ghost of Garter House will hover in photographs by his absence, proving that sometimes the loudest statement in monarchy is the figure you leave out of the frame.